On Wednesday morning, the world awoke to news of a secret operation carried out by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards. From a launch site in Iran's central desert, it successfully used a two-stage rocket to put its first military satellite in space. The Noor, or Light, is now 425 kilometers above us, orbiting Earth. The head of the Revolutionary Guards says it gives Iran's military new strategic advantages.
It is a necessity for such powerful defense forces like the Revolutionary Guards to have access to advanced capabilities. Today, the powerful armies of the world have no comprehensive defense plan if they don't have a place in space. Today, we can monitor the world from space, and it means boosting strategic data for the IRGC. Putting the satellite into orbit gives us a technological advantage and is also a powerful asset in the intelligence war.
Iran has put satellites in space before, but the success of the Noor comes after several failures in recent years. It's expected to be used for intelligence gathering, secure military communications, navigation and reconnaissance, whatever leaders need to support from the sky Iran's military assets on Earth. And the satellite isn't the day's only technological development.
The difference between this satellite and previous ones is that its propulsion uses a combined solid and liquid fuel. Only a few superpowers have this capability, only a few countries. The rest are consumers of this technology.
It's a proud moment for Iran's Revolutionary Guards. The group suffered a major setback to its reputation after the accidental shoot-down in January of Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752. All 176 people on board were killed. Since the beginning of the 21st century, Iran, despite diplomatic and economic isolation, has managed to develop the technology necessary to elbow its way into an elite club, along with rivals like the United States and Israel, as well as allies like Russia, China, India. Iran is one of only a dozen countries in the world with the homegrown rocket technology to launch its own satellites into space. Zein, Basravi, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Let's go over to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Let's start, first of all, Kimberly, with the U.S. president's threat to start shooting at Iranian boats. What is the U.S. Navy saying about that? Will they now escalate any difficult situations straight to the use of deadly force?
Well, we're watching for that very carefully. We know that there will be some podium briefings by both the State Department and the Department of Defense in the next hour, and we are monitoring that. But here at the White House, things have been a little bit quiet in terms of information, but that doesn't seem to be the case necessarily behind the scenes. In fact, we spotted the Director of National Intelligence, Richard Grenell. He was walking in the driveway behind me, went into the West Wing. We can only presume that there are some meetings going on where this is a topic of discussion. But again, none of this has been confirmed from the White House. The only messaging we've had so far is from the U.S. president on Twitter. Here is what he had to say. I have instructed the United States Navy to shoot down and destroy any and all Iranian gunboats if they harass our ships at sea. And this is something that has been escalating in terms of tensions in recent weeks. The United States accusing Iran of, while the U.S. was conducting a drill off of Kuwait in the Persian Gulf, they alleged that Iran's fast boats came very close to the U.S. Navy ship, that in fact at one point they pointed a machine gun, the U.S. taking this very seriously. And as a result, now with the reports of this military satellite launch into orbit, the U.S. president sending this very stern tweet.
Kimberly, as we're talking right now, I've just heard that that Mike Pompeo has been saying the U.S. will hold Iran accountable for the satellite launch. The question is how?
And that is a very big question, because the U.S. president had believed that he had got to a place of military deterrence. You remember those escalations months ago, that ratcheting up following the drone killing of General Soleimani. The U.S. had felt that at that point things had settled down, but there has been increasing escalation, not only the reports of the activity in the Persian Gulf, but also the reports of U.S. vulnerability, something that was a major concern for the United States in terms of that aircraft carrier off of Guam that, of course, had been hit hard by coronavirus, much of their crew experiencing an outbreak, even a death as a result of the outbreak on that aircraft carrier. So the question becomes whether Iran has seen this as a potential ability to expose or rather take advantage of a vulnerability. Of course, the United States very hard hit by coronavirus and grappling with that. And what's become clear is in the midst of all of this, even in the midst of a pandemic, these military rivalries are continuing.
And Kimberly, there's a question about immigration right now, given the U.S. president's latest tweet. So has that stopped?
Well, no. In fact, the U.S. president is set to sign this order. He is very clear about it. In fact, he tweeted saying that he will be signing this order today. But there's some confusion about the explanation as to why. The U.S. president argues that this is because he wants to protect American jobs. And there's no question tens of millions of Americans have lost their jobs. The lineups for the food banks right now are historic. But at the same time, the president's only stopped or put a pause for 60 days on those who want to become permanent residents or citizens. He says he doesn't want to overwhelm not just jobs, but also the medical resources as the United States fights this pandemic. But what hasn't been stopped are some of the visas for farm workers or visas for some of the more highly skilled workers. So it begs the question, if the U.S. president is really trying to protect American jobs, why didn't he do an across-the-board halt? It doesn't seem to be consistent and lends credibility to the Democratic criticism that, in fact, the U.S. president is trying to take advantage of delivering on a campaign promise in an election year. And there's no question, as the U.S. president tweeted that he would be signing this immigration order today, that, in fact, he also mentioned the fact that he has kept another campaign promise, and that is building along the southern border of the United States and Mexico, that wall that he promised to deliver. So this is an election year. We're months away from an election. The U.S. president insists this is about protecting American jobs, American public health, but many are questioning those motivations.
All right, thanks so much. Kimberly Halkett there.